Hi everybody, this is Nate. Welcome to my channel, and I'm so glad to welcome Ness again this month. If you remember, we looked at the energies for September, and she nicely came back here to discuss with us what's happening in October in the current events, but also for every single one of us in our own energy. So, Ness, thank you so much for being back on the channel. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. Yes, we will discuss October's energies, especially from an astrological point of view. Yesterday was the last day of September, and boy, was it a mouthful in terms of the news. Like a lot of things happened yesterday. How was your September? How was your eclipse season?
Yeah, actually, because I met a lot of people who felt like September was not really a great month. Frankly, for myself, it hasn't been a bad month per se, but I could feel that the energies, particularly between the two eclipses, were a bit tense. Like I could really feel the shift in energy. So as much as I have gratitude for not really had anything bad or particularly negative,
Yeah.
obviously you can still feel the energies. And most likely when I do readings for people, I can feel that I haven't really met anyone who had, oh, I had a great September. So
Yeah, it sounds like you were mostly spared, but you were possibly spared to be in service of everyone while they were having a
maybe.
really difficult eclipse season. Yeah, it was the eclipse season for me was very interesting. That Pisces eclipse that happened on September 7th was very spiritual, I had very interesting dreams. I know a lot of folks have been saying they've had very interesting dreams this whole September in terms of both eclipses. And that makes sense because of Pisces and Virgo, they both kind of connect with dreams and wellness and processing things. And so, yeah, I that the Pisces eclipse on September 7th was very spiritual for me. And then we just last week had the Mars square Pluto, and a lot of the times I do astrology about the collective, that collective, view. If you're like almost in outer space and you're looking at Earth, you're like looking at those collective energies. But I forgot to look at how some of these events in September were aspecting my natal chart. And so that Mars square Pluto that happened last week actually happened on top of my Pluto. And so that was very intense. I had very intense dreams where I was like being like kidnapped and like
Oh,
like or things were unfair and there were bullies and very interesting karma of like was coming up in terms of that Mars square Pluto. So yeah, I was one of the ones I would say eclipse season sort of knocked me on my side in terms of the energies and processing all of that. Yeah, and even yesterday, the last day of September was a very interesting news cycle. Both the military meeting that happened in the morning, which I was very surprised. I thought it was a closed doors type of meeting. I did not know that was what we were going to see in terms of Pete's. The internet calls it the TED Talk. He did a TED Talk, and apparently, a lot of his speech yesterday was talking points from a book he wrote, which I think is called The Warrior, something Warrior,
ethos or
yeah, Warrior Ethos.
ethos.
Yes. Yeah. And so, that was interesting. And then we ended the day with the government shutdown. And so I would say September really ended on a heavy note. I really feel that energetically. How about you?
Yeah, particularly with those events, I think, yeah, the energy it's kind of interesting to have two big things like this. And then, frankly, you can even add what happened, I believe, the day before with Netanyahu being at the White House, the Gaza discussions. That's also a hot topic. So
Yeah.
I almost say three big events at the
Pretty
very
big
end
event. Yeah.
of September. Um, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit in details, just
Yeah,
briefly.
I'm so curious
Everything.
about the your perspective on the Gaza thing because I have my perspective is it has two things in it that are not that make it that create barriers for it to be. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Oh goodness. There are two things in the Gaza deal that make it problematic. One is it doesn't install a Palestinian leader. I think Tony Blair is the de facto leader.
Yeah.
And so when Tony Blair leaves, it creates this like power vacuum about who's going to take that role. And the second thing is the Israel still controls the border of Palestine. And so Palestine doesn't have its own airport. And so if anyone wants to leave or enter the Palestinian territory, it is still going to be monitored by Israel, which in theory, I would say the South Africans will call that an apartheid, because they don't have their own, if they want to leave, they have to get Israel's permission. And so I feel intuitively, I don't feel it's going to pass, even though Europe is really supportive of it, and I think key Middle East countries are supportive of it. And I said that yesterday when I was on Linda's show. But I'm curious on your point of view, because you're in Europe, you have your own psychic hits there. What was your interpretation of the meeting, and how do you see it unfolding?
The big energy I got was I felt like it was Trump pushing down signing the deal to Netanyahu or agreeing to the deal to Netanyahu with a lot of resistance energy from Netanyahu. The pickup that I got was like Netanyahu was like, yeah, 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 but we'll see later. Yes, 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 but we'll see later. That's the energy that I got. I feel that there are some agreements that are half agreements there from the Israel side. It feels like it's not tightened up with something clear cut. There's feels like there's still a lot of points in this agreement, and it's just energetically, I haven't looked at it in detail,
Mm.
that are not clear, that are subject to interpretation. It feels like a very messy, moving energy. It doesn't have the energy of a contract.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with that. Yes, I can see why Europe is pushing for it because I feel like Europe's point of view is it might not be a best deal, but can it save lives?
Yeah. And then we can
Women
negotiate
children
later or
particularly.
something.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's just come from the idea of what are we going to do if it's not signed? What's the backup? What's option B?
Yeah.
What's
The
plan
lives
B?
being
And
lost.
in the
Yeah.
meantime, people die. So I think it's just the mentality there. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I just don't get the sense that I feel like it's either not going to be agreed upon or it's going to be agreed upon to realize it's not.
Hmm.
So,
Which is
like, it would be
unfortunate. Yeah.
officially a deal, but there's no deal. Like, it's like everything I hear is like, yeah, but check the fine print, and the fine print doesn't add up.
Yeah, it's also I agree with that Europe is really enthusiastic because it could stop or hit pause on the killing that's sort of happening, but it it basically returns everything to status quo. That Palestine is not recognized as its own, two-state solution, even though all those UN folks were recognizing
Yeah.
Palestine. That's not what the deal says. The deal does not say
No.
Palestine. It basically goes back to where we were almost 2 years ago. And so, I think one of the terms in the deal is like Hamas cannot be in the uh, um, government roles in the new Palestine that will sort of emerge. But I would imagine the Gaza folks, the Palestinian folks, don't want to go back to where we were 2 years ago. They would want to have more authority than where they were, given what happened. I think one Israeli estimate, like ex-military official says, it's likely there's more than 200,000 folks dead. Um, and even though the numbers are like 100,000 or 80,000, that the it's likely way higher, like almost double what we're being
Oh,
told
it's very
the death
possible.
toll. So
I feel also the European point of view is there will be no point of having peace talk if no one's left.
I know. So why not at least have something?
I think that's the
It's
point of view, but I
yeah.
agree. I think no one's naive. Everyone recognizes like this is probably not a great deal, but it's very tricky as to what's best. I think, but I don't think there's going to be a deal. If there's a deal, the fine print will show that it's not exactly what is, and it's not preparing for long-term peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel pretty much the same with Iran, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
we
I didn't
think
know
we
about
have
that.
peace right now, but I think
No, they
it's
have a
gonna
long memory.
resurface. It's gonna resurface. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even Linda, or maybe it was you on another show, or maybe it was Kevin Chandler, talked about how it's Russia and Iran kind of working together with that phone system that went down. I think it was close to the UN. Someone had a plot to turn
Yeah.
off all the cellular phones,
Yep.
and that it was actually both of them working together to kind of do that, as opposed to just one
Yeah.
of the groups.
The
So.
cyber attacks, cyber issues.
So,
Yes.
what do you see the future of Gaza? For example, Netanyahu has an election, I think in the spring of 2026. So, his reign, in theory, potentially might come to an end in 6 months.
Oh yeah.
And so, but also the war, I don't know what else they're able to achieve in 6 months in terms of the additional devastation, because I think they've pushed out, like they've razed to the ground, I mean, possibly more than 75% of the actual buildings. But I think they're this new military effort that they're doing. I think they basically took over 60% of the from the top to the bottom of that's now under the rule of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces.
Um, Netanyahu's coalition that he has built to stay in power has only 2 seats difference with the opposition. So that's very fragile, and I don't think those 2 seats will left. I'm very concerned for the hostages because I just also don't see a lot of progress there, and that's very concerning. So if you ask at a high level what I feel for the next 6 months, it feels like status quo to me.
Status quo where
I
we are.
see a lot of stagnant energy.
Until it's clear or not if
Yes,
Netanyahu is
that
in
it goes
office or
one way or
not.
another, but yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So folks should just expect it to stay status quo until, well, then with that information, Nath, then it makes sense that maybe they don't accept the deal and that they let additional loss of life for the next 6 months with the potential that
Or
they could negotiate a better deal.
could be, or a deal is reached, but then very quickly it
Oh,
looks
yeah, yeah.
like it's not true. I think that's
Yeah.
also a very possible
Yeah.
energy. Um, but it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that this stagnation might help to protect some lives in the meantime, because
Yeah.
it doesn't feel full stop, but it doesn't feel full complete aggression
Yeah.
either. So we're in a the dust settles kind of energy.
Yeah. And that makes sense because I was actually surprised so many Middle Eastern countries were endorsing this, given that it's basically going back. But what you're saying of they're going to maybe pause the loss of life,
Yes,
and maybe they're also playing the waiting game of Netanyahu being
yes.
removed, and then they can negotiate for different terms.
Mhm.
Okay, so folks, if you're on the call and you're hearing us, we feel like it's going to be status quo until Netanyahu has his election next year. And I think it's like May or June next year. I think it's early next year, not the end of next year. So, which astrologically actually aligns because there's a lot of fire activity the second part of 2026. So we're going to have a lot of Jupiter will go into Leo, opposing Pluto. So there's a lot of big transformation energies, which, if for folks and readers have been saying that if maybe Trump is being removed, there seems to be some sort of changing of the guard happening the second part of the year. It could be war, it could just be inspired action, it could be passing laws, constitutional amendments. There's a lot of uh, action bias and a lot of activity happening the second part of 2026, which could be a new leader coming in after Netanyahu, or it could also be a new
Yeah.
leader coming in here in the US after Trump passes or is removed or et cetera, et cetera. So very, very interesting. What was your thoughts about the military meeting yesterday? I was on Linda's show. I was surprised it was televised. I did not know he wrote a book. He wrote that book, The Warrior Ethos. So I didn't realize, I was like, oh, that's actually, he had a really good speech. But then I now realize he just was repeating his book which was very, very interesting. And I did not like how they really fixated on being physically fit or not
I
being
was about
fat
to
or like
comment on that.
because
Yes,
because modern warfare is not hand to hand. Modern warfare is very psychological, very planning. It's cutting resources off, turning the power off. It's all like almost behind a keyboard. And so, what were your thoughts about the meeting yesterday?
I thought that was very interesting from the point of view of this meeting was done for show, for optics, for the looks. And when you think about it, what did they talk about it? They talk about the appearances and the looks with those weight comments, beard comments.
Yeah,
And so there was a similarity between the purpose of this show, televised show,
yeah,
and the looks, the optics, and and the optics of the military personnel with the weight comments, the physical stamina, and then facial hair.
yeah.
Uh, I had a little bit of a laugh when you think about it, as um, Pete Hexet was commenting on obesity in the army. Maybe he should look at the commander in chief and
I know. I thought the
have a
same
point
thing.
there. So that maybe
Also,
lead by example. So
lead by
maybe
example. But also, I
um,
Googled photos of Vance when he was younger and he was in the military, and I don't think he would have passed his test himself. So,
so I don't know
um,
if you like if we were about to see Donald Trump going on a way in to have a live view of his weight, but remember that is that's just for joke. But
yeah, yeah.
remember, the doctor said that his BMI was perfect and
I know.
the weight was perfect. So actually, maybe
He
we're
has no wrongs.
talking
Yeah,
about.
he can wrestle a boar or something like that.
Oh, I think
Um,
it was for show.
yeah.
I think it was like it's a bit scary to hear these type of meetings because it reminds us of, the Second Reich in Germany and how it has that kind of tone, and I think they know. Um, I think the fact that it was done domestically, I when they talked about this big meeting, I was very sure that it was not about like an operation overseas. Not at all.
Oh, okay. That was already your
I
idea.
was I
Okay.
was like, no, this is not that. I feel though that there's what they talked about publicly and then what's the behind the scenes. The
Hmm.
behind the scenes, I feel like Trump and the Trump administration wants to know if they can count on the military. Would there be anything happening domestically?
Hmm.
And I felt like this was kind of the hidden agenda there with the loyalty and
Hmm.
have the military, as we know, like troops being sent to Portland, Chicago, ICE, the blurry lines between
Yeah.
the ICE. And so I felt like that feeds into that.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it. I didn't do a video on it uh, because I feel like this is very triggering.
Yeah.
I
No,
ju-
I know
and
so
I
many
didn't
people that were freaked out yesterday.
and I
The
didn't want to
View.
put this out there and trigger
Yeah, the
people.
energy associated with, yeah,
Yeah.
the women of The View, they watched it right before they did their taping yesterday, and one of them just freaked out. She's like, "This is the beginning of the end," and like everyone had to calm her down and like, "It's okay, we can still have hope." But she's like, "No, this is we're already here. Like this is the point of no return." And so I know a lot of folks very similar to you, the imagery of the World War II and the steps that are there. I don't know if you watched the film The Dictator. It was Charlie Chaplin. He
Yes.
wrote, yeah. It's an amazing film, folks. If you have not seen this film, I think Charlie Chaplin's Jewish, and he was very moved by what was happening in Europe, and he made this film before Hitler was at his peak, and so
Yes.
he commissioned this film. He was trying to warn America about what was happening in Germany, especially I think they were going after people of Jewish descent and putting them in Gestapos versus moving into internment camps. And so I think that was when he was like, oh, let me make this film. And so, yes, it's very similar to the stages that happened in terms of what was happening in Europe. But I intuitively feel this was actually a point of no return in a positive way that happened yesterday. I feel the military are not going to give any indications to Pete and to Trump that they're not
Mhm.
loyal. And I feel like there's something about Pete and Trump that they're not that bright. They're very much into the optics and and what
Yes.
they see in a moment. And so I think these military people are very smart, very strategic, which is why we want them in our military. And so I think they did not give any indication of disloyalty to continue to be put into positions. And then I think if they're being asked to fire on our own citizens or et cetera, then they're going to sort of stand
Yeah.
down. And so I don't think it did the effect that they thought it would, like creating a loyalty pledge, or I think it actually made them understand, read the writing on the wall to understand what's happening. But I also feel this really angered the veteran community
Mhm.
because as much as we have folks in the military active, the numbers in the veteran community are 10x, or 20x
Of course.
in terms of that. And so I'm a little worried for Trump and Vance about that community because that community is very, very hardened in their beliefs and other things.
There
What were
was
your thoughts about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also the other comment is there was also the moment where there was no applause for Trump. Um, I picked up on that. It was very troubling in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I felt like it was a
Well,
good sign.
they're not
Yeah.
allowed to applaud anything, but I think if you watch his speech, which I think is like an hour
Yes.
long, you could feel his energy waning because he's
Yes.
not receiving that praise and he's not receiving that applause. So, yeah.
I felt like he was expecting applause regardless, and there was like the energy dropped.
Yeah.
So if we can only judge by energetically, it felt like it was a flop.
Yes. Yes.
It feels very much, I mean, it's very easy to compare.
Yeah.
It feels exactly the same energy than the parade.
Yes. Yes. The one that happened over the summer. Oh my
We
goodness.
forgot
Yes.
about all this, but there was a
Yes.
parade and it's just
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There was actually someone on YouTube who posted the ending of Pete's speech, and he had made this giant, like, tagline at the end. And then at the end, no one, almost like he expected applause or something. And then they didn't say anything or they didn't give him the reaction. And he kind of just dropped his head down of like, it was like he was disappointed, similar to what you're saying that Trump had, that he wanted something from the
Yes.
audience, even though they couldn't really say anything. So very, very interesting. Kim from Intuit View actually did a video right before this happened, so 2 nights before, and she was going to bed and she had all these psychic hits about what this meeting was, and she saw that Pete didn't feel he was respected by his military subordinates or his
No.
military generals, almost to the point where they might, give him the side eye when he, roll their eyes when he says something, or they kind of undercut him in different ways. And so a big part of this meeting was to regain some of that control, to feel like he's a boss, when you shouldn't have to do something that, if you're really a boss, you don't have to do something like that to feel like a boss. Um, and then after the military meeting that really kind of troubled folks. I know folks, the energy yesterday was very heavy. We also ended with the government shutdown. And we are going to talk about astrology of October because I actually don't feel it's going to, I feel like we're actually going to resolve it in October. There's something that's positive that happens the second part of October that feels like we're going to resolve it. But what are your thoughts about this shutdown? Do you feel it's going to last for a while? What's happening behind scenes?
So first thing first, when I've been doing readings on it in September, I didn't feel like there would be a shutdown, so I was wrong.
Mhm.
Um, but I other than the fact of being wrong, I remember the energy that I felt, and the
Mhm.
energy that I felt was there would be some sort of agreement found.
Mhm.
So I still feel that, even though there's been the shutdown, to me, I still feel the energy. That tells me that some sort of agreement will be found maybe sooner rather than later. 2 weeks
Hmm.
still feel like a long time to me. Like
Okay.
I feel like it might be sooner than that.
Sooner than 2 weeks.
Um, and I've also feel like the energy around the Obamacare and the health
Yes,
benefits. I think the Democrats are holding their ground on it, and I see that being pushed through the deal.
I feel that too. Yes.
So because I've had that reading before, I still don't feel that this shutdown is that severe
Hmm.
because I feel like there's going to be some sort of agreement, and then I think it's a bluff, and yes, I just not getting that sense of, oh, it's going to be catastrophic. Of course,
Yes.
I know people are impacted, and I don't want to diminish whoever's impacted by it.
No, yeah, especially if
But
they're having to work without pay or
yeah,
they're worried about their
of
money.
course. But
Yes,
we're talking about keeping some of the Obamacare health benefits here. That's kind of a big deal. And
it's a big
so
deal.
I think it is personally, as a personal opinion, it is worth it, even though it is creating some hardship. But the energy of it, I just don't get the sense like it was like a tower moment. I don't get
Hmm.
it, not
You
getting
don't
that.
see it lasting for months or something. I think the
Oh
last one, it
no,
lasted
no.
for over 2 months when it happened in 2018. So you're seeing something much shorter. Yeah, astrologically, there's some really positive events happening on the 13th and the 14th. So it's highly likely it will be resolved by then. So that's interesting in terms of what you're feeling. Um, the polls this morning came out that the public very much puts the blame with the Republicans.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Yes, they don't put the blame with the Democrats. I think the Trump administration rebranded the website of the White House and saying the government shutdown is the Democrats' fault. Trump was putting out memes of, I think some meme looks like Trump is laughing at Jeffries while showing a Trump 2028 hat. And so when I see these efforts by the GOP or the Trump administration, um, I look at them, they're a sign of weakness. They understand they don't have the upper hand. They have to resort to these tactics or they feel insecure. So they have to resort to these tactics. And so especially when the polls, they're seeing the polls today that where people are putting the blame squarely on the ruling party, which is the GOP, because they
Yes.
have the majority. So we might see the tide turn in the next few days in terms of the GOP willing to come to
I
the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like the Democrats had to hold their ground, and I think we've been wanting them to do that for a while. And yes, it has consequences. We get that, but there's a lot of stake here.
Yeah, especially healthcare. You're basically saying if I don't do this, people will die. Like it's just like
Well, and then I mean, like some of the implication for SNAP, Medicaid are
yes.
already eroding from the
Yeah.
big, beautiful, we know what. And so people are already feeling the pinch. It's so
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was necessary, but I just don't get the sense like it's gonna be that long. Like, no, I don't see months and months. No, not
Okay.
at all.
Okay. Yeah, the astrology of October is very positive, folks. So September was the one that kind of hit you sideways, but the astrology of October is very positive. We're integrating a lot that occurred. There are I can actually go into it. I don't know if you wanted to say anything more about the shutdown,
No,
Nath, before
no.
I was like,
Let's go on the page from September to
yeah,
October and
let's turn the page. I know,
Rangers.
folks, yesterday was a big pill to swallow and it was a lot of energies, and September was a lot of energies as well that were some difficult eclipse energies to process. But I do want to say October will feel much lighter. We'll feel much more harmony. There's also a beautiful water trine that's happening in October, so we'll talk about that further. Before we do, let's do a little bit infomercial. Both Nath, your services, you have a class that's coming up, and I'll talk a little bit about mine.
Yeah, really quickly. I am doing a class that I mentioned last time we talked. It is a class that's gonna happen on October 18th, I believe, but the date doesn't really quite matter because it's also a class that's recorded and can be seen at any time. But I believe the live is on the 18th, and
Yes, I have it right here. The
you have it
18th
right
of
here.
October.
And so we're getting, I think something that you don't see very often is you getting into health, you know,
Mm.
and publicly, Ness, because you've doing a great job and helping me with lives.
Yes,
And as a
moderating with you.
moderator, that a lot of people have questions about health, and I don't do that in a public setting very often. It's just touchy, but I do that in a private setting. So I
Mm.
want to do this class for either people who are very beginner to divination and cards, or people who
Mhm.
are more advanced, but both of them that are willing to get into how do I use the tools, the cards, the tarot, or Lenormand or playing cards. You could pick one tool. You don't necessarily have to use all three, but I'll demonstrate all three to do a proper health reading,
Mm.
diagnosing the problem, finding ways to resolve the problem. Will there be a surgery? No surgery? Um, which is very important. Yes, we're not doctors. This is for entertainment purposes only. But guess what? I do have doctors who consult me and they want their own medical situations discussed
Yep.
from a spiritual standpoint. So I feel like we don't really talk about this enough. This is
Mhm.
an entry level class to play with your cards and do a little bit of intuition on health.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's basically what these 2 hours is, when you see this curve, does it mean, is there surgery? Is there a doctor? Is there a
Mhm.
hospital? Is it the blood flow? Is it the neck?
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at what each cards mean and how to pull the cards to kind of, play with your own, play with your understanding and your intuition when
Mm.
it comes to a health reading. So, whether you're a beginner in divination
Mhm.
or you're more advanced, but you never really got into health because it's touchy, I don't know
Mhm.
how to do this. Well, I'm like embracing the topic and let's just talk
Mhm.
about it without
Yeah.
taboo. So
Yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Very, very cool. I love that how you also start to create language about those different health systems, whether it's, their circulatory system, the nervous system, the kidneys. In
Yeah,
astrology, we have ways of doing that too. Like the moon represents water, so that's often the kidneys. I had warned Linda that the eclipse season was going to be about health axes, and so she actually had a health event that happened. And so we can do that with astrology. Uranus rules the brain, Saturn is the
exactly.
bones. And so I think it's really helpful, folks, with this type of class that you will offer, that people can understand those archetypal energies so they can start to do it on themselves, but also for others as well. Like they can start to use these divination tactics. I love that. I think that's, and if folks love your classes. I've heard so many positive things where they feel very connected. You're an amazing instructor, but they feel connected with each other in terms of these classes and, sharing their video on screen and, chit-chatting. So, very exciting. They're
And
really going to
it's
enjoy
true
that.
that I think the next level would be to create a class that combines divination and astrology on
Ooh, very
health,
good. Very
something we
good.
could work
Yes.
on one day.
Yes, that's it's interesting. Sorry, Linda asked me to look at Kamala's chart in terms of I had read her book, amazing book, folks. Kind of written very plain spoken, so very easy to read. It kind of just walks you through each day of the
Mhm.
election. You can kind of see it like it's day 86 there, and she just tells you kind of what happens, which is great for someone who's going to run for any kind of candidate, position. They're going to be able to understand how someone else does it, which I think is the main reason why she wrote this book. And then one other thing too about this book, I forgot to mention this earlier. Um, she doesn't disprove election fraud in this book. So as she talks about the campaign trail and what the polls are saying, and also her thoughts about election night and the day after when she concedes, she doesn't make statements to disprove any fraudulent behavior. She
Mhm.
often will just talk about the margins being really close, but she doesn't really do a postmortem that says, oh, it was really about the economy, or oh, it was really about, immigration. I didn't take it seriously, which my interpretation when I read this is it kind of validates what this YouTube reader world thinks about the election in terms of was it fair or not? And so I just found that interesting because she could have easily made a statement that disproved the election. She could have just easily said, oh, it was very clear, in Pennsylvania, they really cared about this issue. I didn't take it seriously. Hey, future Democrats, pay attention to this issue because I want to prepare you. She did not do that at all. So I just, folks, I think you might be pleasantly intrigued with this book in terms of how she walks everyone through it. But
Make a
but
perfect agent for Kamala Harris book tour.
I know you'll be surprised how many people in the audience actually bought her book in terms of reading it, trying to go back, trying to understand. But Linda asked me to look at her chart, and similar to what you were saying about astrology and using divination tactics for health. She's having a very spiritual year right now. She's kind of having this big spiritual transformation. I looked at her solar returns, which are birthday returns, which is the priorities from one birthday to the next based on where the planets are on your birthday. And she has Pluto transiting her ninth house of belief. So I think the long and short of it is I actually believe she was a bit naive about how the world worked in different ways or the fairness that I don't think she believed that the election rigging would happen at that scale. And so, or maybe other people would step in or something like that. So she's having this big transformation of beliefs, possibly very spiritual too, like maybe accepting psychics and angels and ETs. There's just some big expansion of what truth is for her. And it's going to be there for the next 20 years. But in 2 years, going to the health thing, she will have Saturn opposite her moon, sorry, on top of her moon, which is her health, her body. And it will be opposite her sun, which is her ego, her identity. And at the same time, we have Jupiter, which is this planet of expansion, happening in her fourth house of her body. Her emotions are close to Pluto. So, very similar, folks. Divination, both with Nate's class, but also astrology, can help you really start to unpack health things in different ways. Um, but otherwise, let's move into October's astrology. We're going to talk about that, so folks have a sense of it. Before I do that, I'm just going to do a little pitch too about some services that I'm offering. I created a personal calendar for 2026. So, folks, if the past few days, the past month has been intense, and you want maybe something to look forward to, I have created a personalized calendar where we will have your natal chart underneath, and we will have the transiting planets for each month on top, so you can get a sense of a forecast each month. I have about 148 of these left, and then I won't make any more. I will probably open it up again in February, but I just have, I can only do so much in the time that I have. And so these are the only calendars I'm going to make for the year. And I also have my manifestation class coming up on 11/11. We'll have two sets. This was very popular when we offered it back in Lionsgate. We have amazing curriculum that you'll have as your student, as well as personalized worksheets. So that's going to be up on the horizon. And then I also offer personal readings. And the big one that I do right now is the paradigm shift reading, which is the one I did for you, Nath, where we looked at the big paradigm shift. So,
Yeah,
folks, if you had a lot of change happen in your life the past 6 months, 7 months, big change, kind of surprises, didn't expect it, some life pivots, this will be the reading that'll help make sense of it because it's very intelligent and there becomes a clear narrative arc in terms of how that happens for you.
very nice.
Now, let's move into October's astrology. And I wanted to pick your brain, Nath, about the Nobel. And this is the Nobel schedule. And next Friday, October 10th, will be the Nobel Peace Prize. And my undergrad was actually at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and we're one of the universities that has the most amount of Nobel winners. And so our campus was really into this. So we would want to hear which professor won an award about this. We had a lot for medicine because there was a lot of research that was happening there. I think we have 70 Nobel professors that were professors that taught at Berkeley that won the Nobel. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts about who will win the Nobel Peace Prize? I think we can take off the table that it won't be Trump. I think we both can agree. Um, but my psychic hit on this is I see there's going to be three or four people. And
Oh,
I think it's three or four
me?
people, and I think one of them will be tied to the Gaza-Israel conflict. So, But I'm
Interesting.
curious, what are you, because last year they didn't offer the winner was not connected to Gaza, I believe. And I was hoping that they were, but I think we're reaching a critical point that logically and intuitively it feels there's going to be a nod to Gaza.
Let me pull some cards. I don't know if I would have a name of a person, but I felt
Mhm.
like the energy about it. I think just being curious, the energies for of Friday, October the 10th for the Nobel Peace
Mhm.
Prize. Oh, interesting. My first two cards are the Queen of Cups and the King of Wands, a woman and a man.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
interesting. If you're looking at building on what you said, thinking
Yeah.
of maybe a group, it could be male and female.
Mm.
That would be especially the Queen of Cups. There's a compassion element, the man, something that would happen. The Chariot as a third card is something that was movement. So I felt like people who have really, really made a difference. Really
Mm.
like it's not just talk, it's like really
Yeah.
really made a difference.
Made impact.
And I feel like there's a topic of poverty.
Mm.
So peace, I know we understand it as a war, but I feel like there's an element of, yeah, people die, but also the struggle that people have been. And it's interesting because I'm getting also famine. People don't have enough food and
Mm.
impact on the war. So I feel like
Yeah.
the theme seems to be around not just the war, but the conditions of war and people who have helped. So it could be something humanitarian. Queen of
Yeah.
Cups here. Um, the Chariot is logistics, so organization,
Mhm.
NGOs that have, you know,
So a group could be acknowledged. It might not even be a
could
person.
be, Doctors Without Borders. I don't think that's that, but an
Yeah.
energy of that. It's just interesting that we have a male and female.
Yeah. It's interesting. Last year, Jose Andres, the one of World Kitchen, he was nominated. I don't know if he was nominated this year, but a lot of people thought he would win last year. I'm curious if your pick, it might be him in terms of this year
Well,
of
that's
winning.
interesting. I was getting food and famine
Yes.
and things like that, so that could
Yeah,
also,
food, and he did an amazing job in LA post fires of not only going over to Gaza and providing food, especially famine was a big issue more this year than last year. But he also was doing things here. So this is kind of his organization of just jumping into a crisis and helping provide
yeah,
food. And
it,
so,
it has the energy of people who don't have enough, people who struggle. That
yeah.
so more than
Okay.
a true war, kind of, which
Yeah.
can be a result of war, but
Yeah.
it came first. So let's
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, the five of pentacles there. Yeah, we'll find out, folks. So in about 10 days, we'll see if these psychic hits are
On
accurate.
par
Let
or
me
not? Yes.
let me go into October's astrology. So, folks, I know the past 24 hours or 48 hours have been really intense. I do want to say October is much lighter. I would say October is one of the lighter months coming up. I would say November and some December have some sort of squishy, kind of compressed energies, but October should feel like oh, I can breathe. Oh, I can, sigh, especially post eclipse season. So, there are three key themes in October. There's one, a focus on relationships, and it happens multiple ways. We have this beautiful grand trine with Venus, Pluto, and Uranus. I'm just going to jump ahead so you can kind of see it here. And
Wow.
when it comes to a trine, I want you to think, and Nathe, I think you can do this. Three of Cups. So it's like three women kind of locking arms and they're kind of joyous. So when you're thinking of a trine, you want to think of these three planets joyful and happy, and they're kind of skipping around and jumping to each other's spot, kind of like this, like a Mayflower type of, or not maypole type of thing, where they're just very, very happy and the energy is flowing. So we are having a period in the middle and also the new moon in Libra about focus on relationships, focus on diplomacy, focus on justice. So I have a feeling the shutdown will likely be resolved in October and possibly Gaza. So astrologically, it is pointing to what you said earlier, Nath, that they actually would sign the deal. And even though it might not be what they actually do, or they
Last
might say
thing.
different things back on stage,
Exactly.
astrologically it shows that they might sign the deal both for the shutdown, but also for Gaza. So, folks, this is going to be a great time to feel connected with other people, feeling like you understand each other, feeling like they see you, you see them, and you feel like you're part of a community or part of, other intimate relationships. That's the first part of October. The middle of October, we have this beautiful Mercury conjunct Mars that happens. And if you see the wedges, Mercury is this size here, it's this length, and then Mars is this length. So it looks like the second part of October, we're going to have Mercury really close to Mars. And what that will do for us is, let me zoom out, is it's going to create really sharp clarity. Our thoughts are going to be very vivid. We're going to be able to see truth for what it is, piercing insights. We're going to be able to uncover hidden motives. It's like seeing X-ray goggles with the world. Kamala, for her birthday coming up, will have this conjunct for her entire birthday solar return. So she's going to have piercing, X-ray goggles about life, about what's happening for the whole entire year, for her. And so that's very joyful, I would say, for her to kind of be in truth, especially as a Libra sun. But I feel with this event that happens for the middle part of October, is it's highly likely the Epstein files will not only be voted on, but possibly released. This
Mm,
is what we're going to possibly experience in October. Especially, I think the shutdown is preventing that last Democrat from being nominated, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dems are sort of negotiating for this shutdown that they also guarantee this person gets nominated. Does that make sense? Like,
mm,
because they're already in the negotiating table. It's inevitable. They can't push it out till
yes.
um till next spring. So I have a feeling this is the middle part of October of piercing communications, sharp clarity. This is a great period to do to pull tarot, to do therapy work, to
Mm,
journal, to really ask yourself those questions that you've been confused about and don't really have clarity on. And then we end the month with this beautiful water sign trine. It's actually one of three water sign trines we're going to experience this year, towards the end of the year. So we're going to have one in October, and then we're going to have two in November. And when it comes to a water sign trine, I want you to think of Three of Cups, where a bunch of people are just joyful and they're skipping around. This water sign trine here is going to first have Mercury and Mars. And then later it's going to have the sun. And then later it's going to have Venus. They're going to eventually occupy this position. And a water sign trine is like enhanced, like spiritual awakening, intuition, emotional connections. It's going to be a great time to book a psychic reading with Nathe or others. It'll be a great time to take a psychic class, like a tarot class or another psychic and development class. It will be a great time to write like memoirs or just get in touch with your emotions, feeling connected with other people. And it's going to be a very emotionally fulfilling period with these water sign trines, where the air sign trines are more about like intellectual breakthroughs that sort of happen. These ones were going to be more emotionally driven. And so that is, at a high level, October's astrology. One event I want folks to watch out for is the new moon in Libra. And this is the first new moon after eclipse season. So this particular new moon will be like us turning a page, us starting anew, us like looking at back at what just happened, what the wreckage was in terms of September's energies. Maybe what are we going to do about this military thing? What are we going to do about the shutdown? Like, where are we moving forward from here? It's very likely potentially that maybe the Epstein files will be released before this because we're starting to respond like, well, what's the so what of all of this? And so on an individual level, folks are going to really have a sense of where the fairness in relationships are. So that's very much in the vibe of Epstein and fairness, but also maybe how our government officials acted during the shutdown. How did they show up? In your individual lives, you're going to have a sense of who's showing up for you. Where is the reciprocity? Where are relationships out of balance? Where are people maybe you need to cut out of your life in different ways? And so that is kind of the energies around this new moon in Libra. And again, it's the first new moon after eclipse season. So this is new beginnings. This is the new you you're sort of stepping into after processing all those bigger energies that happened in September. So that is the astrology forecast for October. I'm curious, Nath, does that resonate with what you're feeling in terms of October energies?
yeah, very much so. I feel like it feels like a release. of energy from the September to October. Let me put a couple cards. I wanted to show the Three of Cups. You mentioned the Three of Cups.
Yes,
This
the
is the
joyful.
cards. You can see that um the three women with a cup, but also food on the table and happiness and gathering. So there might be also social gathering. Obviously, Halloween is on the 31st, obviously, and
Yes,
there
it's
like
it's
something special about Halloween energies? Just
yeah,
curious.
it's interesting with the water sign trines that are coming up. That means, in another way of saying it, the veil will be thinner, and the veil is always thin for Halloween anyway. So
Oh,
imagine very
oh,
interesting
like a
psychic
double
hits.
down.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, let's look at October.
And I also thought about Thanksgiving when you had all that food too,
Yeah.
because that's happening in November.
It's interesting. The King of Cups, it's the extreme emotions. I think that
Mhm.
ties with the water energy. But look at
Interesting.
those two cards, the Tower, which is the release, which I don't panic when I get the
Yeah,
Tower. It's really a release
release.
energy. It's the
Yeah,
release of the September to the
yeah,
October
yeah.
energy. The next card validates it's a positive release with a big
The
sunshine. And
sun.
so there's like an emotional release,
Yeah,
and then that leads to something, and then Four of Wands, which is kind of a happy place. So we shouldn't be in a certain way that Tower is just what we're feeling now. We're
yeah,
about to get to that release.
yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
And
I see that.
so there's like the pressure has been mounting in the pressure cooker,
Yeah,
and that's when you get the release. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, very, yeah, the emotions are very high. We
Yes.
have the pressure of the tower, and then we have a new day, especially that new moon in Libra. That's
Yes.
that
That's
sunshine,
the
that new
sun.
day, that new
Yes.
future that we're sort of and it's moving towards Four of Wands, stability, consistency.
Yes. Yes.
And so I know we're starting the month in a very awkward position, folks, especially the past 48 hours, but I would say keep the faith, keep the hope. As we move through October, it will lighten up. It will astrologically will lighten up, and I would imagine October and November is going to be with the water sign trines are going to feel very connected, very emotional, and then we will sort of hit the ground running in December and January again in terms of the astrology. So yeah, that is the forecast for October. I'm curious, are you having any other events or shows coming up, Nath?
Yeah, I just actually for the first time posted on my post slash community page
Yeah.
all the shows that are going to be happening in October, and there's
Hmm.
almost like something every day.
Oh,
So,
great.
but there will be a Halloween show open to everyone, and there will be a Zoom show for members the next
Okay.
day on November 1st for Sherry Voices of the Swamp and my members as a
Okay.
joint show.
Okay.
But they will be for open to everyone that same show, but on a Halloween day. And there will be some giveaways and
Hmm.
freebies and something fun and probably dressed up
Oh, in costume.
in
Very, very
costume.
fun. Oh,
Yes.
I love that. Yeah, a lot of the readers dress up that Halloween week. And it's funny because Halloween week is very much, the veil is thinner. So it's actually it's a great time to schedule readings. It's a great time to ask questions on
Yes.
YouTube. The hits coming in, mediumship, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes,
So that'll be
of course,
very, very
because
interesting.
November 1st is All Saints Day, so
Mhm.
it's everyone. So well, Ness, it was a pleasure having you on the channel. You walk us through a lot of material and a lot of things, whether they're current events related or at our personal level. I can't wait to have you again on the show sometime in October, maybe, or early
Yeah, the
November.
end of October, like in 3 or 4 weeks,
Yes.
we'll look at November's energies in terms
Okay.
of
Yes.
which
To see
feels
what
very,
we look
very
at.
positive too. I would say November
Okay.
is also going to be a positive month as well. So yeah. Well, thank you, Nate, for having
Wonderful.
me. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to your upcoming shows as well. Love to see them.
Thank you. Thank you. And bye, everyone. And welcome to October.
You're so
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye bye.